What's going on, YouTube? We're spending this Derby day with the thoroughbred of the Acura sedan lineup, the TLX A-Spec. And this particular one is in the beautiful brand new premium Apex Blue Pearl. Of course, we do want to take a moment to thank our friends at Courtesy Acura for giving us access to this TLX. And if you're in the market for any new Acura, be sure to stop by their dealership or visit them via their website, which we provided a link to in the video description. So with that all said, let's see what changes have been made for 2020. So starting off with the exterior styling, everything carries over from the very extensive refresh it got back in 2018. That means all trims will continue to find Acura's signature diamond pentagon grille, with the lower fascia varying by trim. Of course, the A-Spec is going to get you this aggressive version, with dark chrome around the grille, round fog lights, and a mean-looking bumper design. But as far as the other trims, they go for a more subdued and elegant look, using chrome and on the advanced rectangular fog lights. The headlights are the same among all the different designs, always being these jewel-eye fully LED lights. Around at the back, the A-Spec looks very sporty, with a blacked out spoiler, aggressive rear diffuser, and large diameter dual exhaust. All the models will have the same LED taillights, but just like in the front, the other trims do come with a more toned down appearance for the other aspects. Now the only exterior update to mention for 2020 are the new premium paint options: Performance Red, Majestic Black, Canyon Bronze, and this Apex Blue. These colors include additional coats, metal flakes, and nano pigments for a deep, intense color. But overall, the TLX continues to be a sharp-looking sedan, especially when you get the A-Spec in this gorgeous paint. Now moving on to the wheels, there are a ton of different designs that vary by engine and trim. It's pretty complicated, so I won't go through every possible combination, but as far as the A-Specs, they get these 19-inch shark gray alloys on both the 4-cylinder and V6 models. Tech and Advance models with the V6 also have the same 19-inch wheels, but with a different contrast finish. Coming back to the mirrors, they are always power adjusting and heated, though you'll have to get the loaded Advance for auto dimming and power folding. Blind spot monitoring is also included inside the pillar on all but the base model. However, as far as all the rest of the safety systems, they are standard across the board. That includes automatic forward emergency braking, lane keeping assist, adaptive cruise control, and automatic high beam headlights, which are all things that many of the rivals charge extra for. Finally, the last thing to mention on the outside are the fuel ranges from the 17.2 gallon fuel tank. Now since there are so many fuel economies, I won't go through all of them, but as far as our 4-cylinder model, it gets 447 miles of range. Both engines do recommend premium fuel, but it's not required. Anyways, that's it for the exterior. So now let's hop inside and see this model's unique red interior. So every version of the TLX does come standard with the Acura Smart Entry system. And you will also have remote start on the key fob when you go for the advanced trim. Now as far as getting inside the vehicle, it is very simple. Of course, there's a sensor behind the handle, so all you gotta do is grab it. Alright, so checking out the cabin of the 2020 Acura TLX. As you can see, there really haven't been any changes to the interior design. So it does mean you'll continue to find a lot of different interior choices. So only the base TLX model is going to come with leatherette. However, everything else will come with real premium Milano leather. You do have several different color choices. On your standard models, you've got the choice between ebony, parchment, gray stone, or espresso. And then when you go for the A-Spec models, you have a black seat with Alcantara inserts, or we have the kind of the special option, which is the full red leather. Looks really stunning, really makes this car pop. Now as far as your door trim, those same materials carry over through here. So you've got beautiful red leather all through here, as well as some silver wood trim down here on the A-Spec. We do also have 2-person memory seating on the A-Spec, as well as 4 fully automatic windows. Heading over here to the seat, it is 10-way power adjusting, and you even have power power thigh extension, which is definitely a really nice touch. And like I was saying, this is the Milano leather. It feels very nice to the touch, and as you can see, it's got a really attractive design. Got some black stitching as well as some black piping on the sides. So like I was saying, as far as interior design and materials, nothing has changed for 2019. So it does mean you continue to have good materials. You've got a soft touch dashboard across the entire upper part. And then moving down to the center, you have some more of this silver painted wood trim. Dropping down to your lower areas, again, you have more of this silver painted trim all through the center, as well as some silver trim along the side here. And everything does fit together in that typical, really high quality, accurate way. Of course, standard across every model, you do have push button start. And when you press it, you'll continue to find the 2-screen AcuraLink setup fire up. Now checking out your gauges here, these are your traditional Acura gauges, mostly analog, very clean and simple. And you do have a multi-function display here in the middle that you can just scroll through the different information, including your drive modes, average speed, as well as some safety systems. And then coming back to the steering wheel itself, you will find a leather-wrapped steering wheel across all models. However, here on the A-Spec, you've got some special branding, as well as you might notice here on the side is kind of squared off and a little bit thicker right here, so it makes for a nicer place to grip here. As far as your controls, you're looking at your standard phone, audio, and voice controls. Then on this side, you got your multi-function display as well as your adaptive cruise control. Also in the A-Spec, you will find standard rain sensing wipers, as well as paddle shifters. And then the steering wheel itself is manually tilt and telescoping across the board. Now moving on to interior storage, this is an area that the TLX does better than a lot of the competition. So this car's front wheel drive architecture does allow it to have a really deep center bin here. You do have a felt lining down at the bottom, as well as a 12-volt outlet and an aux jack. In front of that, you got your 2 cup holders, as well as another really large storage bin when you slide that back. This does double as a wireless phone charger on the A-Spec and the Advanced trims. And then you also have a traditional 12-volt outlet as well as a USB port. Now coming back to the shifter here, this is one of the things that changes depending on if you get the 4-cylinder or the V6. So the V6 models come with the electronic shifter with the little toggle buttons. However, the 4-cylinder models come with the traditional physical shifter. So since this is a 4-cylinder model, it's very simple to use. You just pull back for drive, and then you can shift manually using the paddle shifters. Heading into reverse, you will notice up here on the top screen is where your backup camera will appear. You do have your active trajectory, and there is an available 360-degree camera system on the Advance. And then back behind the shifter, you've got this button called Dynamic Mode, and what this does is just toggle between your different drive modes. So you have Econ, Normal, Sport, and then a Sport Plus mode on the A-Spec. And then finally you have an electronic parking brake and a brake hold feature. Now moving on up, the next thing to check out is your climate control system. Now it is dual zone automatic across all the trims. And as you can see, you basically got half of your buttons on the screen here, and the other half represented physically. So we can just use these toggles to adjust the temperature, or you can click here and adjust it like that. You also adjust your fan speed right here, and you adjust your zones through this part right here. And as you can see, the responsiveness, it was upgraded a couple years ago to be a lot better, and it definitely does respond a lot faster than it used to. You also access your seat controls by pressing that button right there. As you can see, you do have 3-stage seat heating. That's standard across the board. However, the seat ventilation is standard on only the A-Spec and the Advance. Alright, so now let's go ahead and sample the ELS 10-speaker audio system. It comes on all but the very base model. Overall, this is a very nice sounding system, and I definitely appreciate that Acura makes it available on all but the base trim. But anyways, that pretty much brings us here to our AcuraLink system, so let's go ahead and take a quick look. Since this screen is not a touch screen, you have to use these buttons and this knob down here to control it. You do have regular phone, which has all of your contacts that are automatically synced over from your smartphone. You can toggle through them like this, or you can search down here with this keyboard on the touch screen. So starting out on the top screen, this is where your Android Auto or Apple CarPlay would appear when you plug in a phone to the USB port down in the storage tray. Now we're on the Acura's version of navigation. This is standard on the technology models and up. That's pretty much all I'm going to talk about in this video, but we do have a detailed tech help video available if you want to check it out. A link is in the description. Now moving on up, you do have a standard auto dimming mirror, and then you get your HomeLink universal remotes located up here. Now one of the really nice standard features that Acura includes is a standard moonroof. This is across all the trims, regardless of the price point and regardless of the engine. And that's something that a lot of the competition does not include. But overall, the cabin of the Acura TLX continues to be a nice place to spend time. What I really like about it is that Acura includes a lot of standard equipment and a lot of luxury things that you have to usually pay extra for or at a much higher price point on the competition. But anyways, now I'll go ahead and hand it off to Mason, who will check out all the rear areas.
Alrighty, so checking out the rear seat of the 2020 Acura TLX, you're going to find a pretty class competitive amount of space. You'll find 34.5 inches of rear legroom and 37 inches of rear headroom, which does place it on par with most of the German rivals and a little less than the Lincoln MKZ. But turning over here to the door trim, it is a really cool design, especially here with the red leather combo. So we do have a red leather armrest here, nice color contrast stitching, and it does even go up here. Now in addition to that, you have a silver door handle, and of course your window is fully automatic. Now the seat itself is a really nice design even here in the rear. So you have that beautiful Milano leather, and in this model, this beautiful red color. I really am a big fan of that. Now here in the center, all TLXs will come pretty well equipped. So they all will have these rear air vents, and if you opt for the top end Advance model, you will also get heated rear seats. Now here in the center, you do have a fold down armrest. It does have some cup holders and some storage. And above that, you do have some lighting. In addition to that, you have a nice headliner, as well as a assist grip and cover hook. Now behind Drew's seating position, I'm actually very comfortable, so I have about 4 to 5 inches of rear leg room, and my feet can easily slide up under the seat. And when you slide over with the seat scooted all the way back, it's pretty much the same story, so I have just about an inch or two of leg room, but it's actually very competitive for the class. So overall, I'm a really big fan of the TLX's rear seat. These seats are extremely comfortable. I really love the red leather. And the features are pretty good for the class. Now coming around to the trunk, all you have to do is locate the button under the lid, and it will open right up. And once inside, you're going to find 14.3 cubic feet of space, which does place it on par with a lot of the German rivals. However, it is a little bit less than the all-new 3 Series and Lincoln MKZ. Now with that said, you can see that we have a ton of camera equipment back here, and it slides all the way back, and there's really no issue in terms of space back here. And off to the side, you do have a little storage cubby, and down below the floor, you have another little storage area, which is actually very rare for a sedan. It's actually about a foot or 2 deep, so you could hide quite a bit under this floor. Now in addition to that, I do want to mention that the seats do fold 60-40 split, and your cargo hinges are covered. Now coming over to the passenger seat, of course it is that same lovely design, and it is also 4-way power adjusting on the 4-cylinder models, or standard 8-way power adjusting on the V6. Now in front of the passenger, you do have really nice materials. So I have a padded dashboard, some nice trim below that, and the glove box is pretty good sized. As you can see, it goes back quite a ways, and it is felt lined. Up top, you have a sun visor with a mirror and light, and it does also detach and extend. But overall, guys, that sums up all of the rear areas of this TLX. So now let's go ahead and get on the road and see how it performs out there.
Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about the powertrains. Now for 2020, you do carry over the same powertrain options as last year. There's 2 options, a 4-cylinder and a V6. Now we actually have the 4-cylinder model this year, and starting last year was when they added that to the A-Spec trim. So you can now get a 4-cylinder or a V6 A-Spec trim, though the Advanced trim is still reserved for with only the V6. So as far as the engine, is a 2.4 liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder. It produces 206 horsepower and 182 pound-feet of torque. And it is paired with a 8-speed dual-clutch automatic transmission with front-wheel drive only. The V6 model can get all-wheel drive, the super handling all-wheel drive system, but this model gets all-wheel steering instead of all-wheel drive. As far as the V6, it is a 3.5 liter naturally aspirated V6, and it puts out 290 horsepower and 267 pound-feet of torque. And it has a totally different transmission, a 9-speed ZF automatic. Finally, in regards to your fuel economy, your front-wheel drive 4-cylinder model comes in at 23 city, 33 highway, 27 combined. And then going to the V6, drops that down a little bit to 20 city, 32 highway, 24 combined. And then if you go for super handling all-wheel drive on top of the V6, you actually do not lose any combined MPGs. But anyways, that's pretty much it. So let's go ahead and take this on a test drive. So first taking off, then the 2020 TLX 4-cylinder. It actually feels pretty punchy off the line. You know, it is a naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine, so you are going to have a good deal less power. What was it, 90-ish horsepower less? But it definitely has that kind of punchy feel to it right off the line. Right off the bat here, I really like how tight everything feels. You can just kind of tell this is tuned very nicely for some sport driving. You know, the chassis, it feels really buttoned down, really agile. And the steering, it's got a great accuracy to it. Like you can just tell right off the bat, it's very natural feeling. It has a good heft that most of the rivals don't have. You know, there's several of them have very artificial feeling steering setups, and this just has this really natural feel to it. Very, very fast too. You can see how quickly the turn in, it's instant, and it's very linear. There's none of that, you know, artificiality basically.
You know, that my first impression here, kind of riding along, I'm very impressed by the button-down feel of it. You know, I kind of expected this car to be a little bit more on the luxury side, where it didn't have the best driving dynamics, but you know, it does feel very buttoned down around corners, and that's something that I really like.
And the steering wheel itself, definitely really like that. You have the thick rim right here on the center point, and that really has a great feel to it. Yeah, I'm definitely impressed by how punchy this is. It definitely feels a lot more powerful than on paper, so you know, don't be alarmed. Definitely come out and take it on a test drive and see if this is going to be enough power for you. But this is not one of those cars that the on paper number accurately represents, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Well, you know, and also I think it sounds a lot better too. You know, I was really kind of a little bit concerned about it sounding like a Camry or an Accord or whatever, but you know, it really does not sound like that. It actually has been tuned to sound more like a V6.
Let's talk about that dual clutch transmission. I just want to say, very, very impressed by it. This is in-house developed by Honda, and it is a fantastic transmission. You know, with dual clutches, there can kind of be sometimes hesitation off the line. Some of the shifts can feel kind of slow and jerky. You don't get any of that here. I mean, this really feels like a traditional automatic through and through, and it spits off shifts lightning fast. You know, you're basically getting the pros of the dual clutch, but you know, you're not getting any of the drawbacks. I mean, like I said, extremely impressed by how the transmission fires off shifts and how smooth it is.
Now, I do also want to take a moment here to mention just how smooth this car rides. I know we've been talking a lot about the performance and how it steers and all that stuff, but it is a luxury vehicle first and foremost, and it definitely rides like one. So these seats are extremely comfortable. They're honestly one of my favorite parts about the car, and it also rides very smooth in here. Even though we have huge wheels on this A-Spec, You're really not feeling any of the bumps. They're not really making it in the cabin, and it's also extremely quiet. What we'll go ahead and do is move it into our sport mode here and see how that does. So I'm definitely sensing a lot more responsiveness from the throttle, as well as the steering. The steering is further tightened up. Even in the normal mode, I would definitely say this is a heavier and more natural feeling steering arrangement than in most of the competition. Even some of the Germans, like the Audi A4, definitely has a lighter steering. And then when we put it in the sport mode, it ramps up another notch. So I'm definitely really enjoying the way the steering feels in this car. This really, like Mason has already touched on, this surprisingly sporty. The A-Spec, you know, when they brought it down to the 4-cylinder, it seems like, you know, they're just want to put the cosmetics of the A-Spec onto the 4-cylinder, but that's not really the case. They actually have made this legitimately sporty feeling just with the 4-cylinder engine. So if you're fine with just having a spunky 4-cylinder engine, it's not mind-boggling power or anything, but it definitely feels peppy. And if you're fine with that, you really have all the same pros from the V6 model, and it really is overall quite a satisfying experience. Now, as far as the pricing is concerned for the 2020 TLX, you are going to find very competitive pricing, especially compared to its German rivals. So for the very base TLX 4-cylinder, it's going to come in at a starting price of $33,000. And if you want to upgrade to the tech package, that's $36,700. The A-Spec is $39,400. And then, like Drew mentioned before, the Advance is V6 only, so that's going to jump all the way up to $45,950. However, I do want to mention that on all the other trims, you can get the V6, and that's about a $3,000 upgrade over the prices that I just mentioned. And as far as how this particular model is equipped, we do have the 4-cylinder A-Spec option. So that's going to come in at a starting price of $39,400, and then we have the optional beautiful blue paint, and that's a $400 additional charge. And then when you add in the $995 destination charge, this particular model as equipped is $40,795. Which is definitely a very impressive price point, especially for how good this car looks on the outside. Like we mentioned before, like a lot of the German rivals will be in the 50s, and this is barely over 40. And it's uncommon to give you the sport looks inside and out, while still paired with the basic engine, and that definitely lowers the price down a lot more than what you're going to see with different competitors. Well guys, we hope you enjoyed watching the first in-depth look at the 2020 Acura TLX A-Spec. Please hit those like and subscribe buttons if you haven't already, and we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.
Mm-hmm.